Have you ever wondered what goes on inside the mind of someone who breaks the law? Or how experts determine whether a suspect is lying, mentally competent, or dangerous? Forensic psychology sits at the fascinating intersection of psychology and the legal system, helping courts, investigators, and juries make informed decisions based on human behavior. Welcome to HowExpert Tip of the Day, where we bring you real-world tips from our how-to guides on all topics from A to Z. If you want to learn even more in-depth strategies, examples, and techniques on this topic, check out HowExpert Guide to Forensic Psychology, available at Amazon, Audible, Barnes & Noble, Google, Kobo, Apple, Spotify, and all major bookstores, as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook. Forensic psychology is a field filled with complexity, ethical nuance, and high-stakes decision-making. It helps investigators understand motives, assists courts in evaluating defendants, and supports victims through the justice process. In this video, you'll learn 7 essential steps to understand the core principles and practice of forensic psychology. Step number 1. Understand what forensic psychology really is. Forensic psychology applies psychological principles to legal questions, everything from evaluating competency to testifying as an expert witness. It is not about profiling alone, nor is it simply psychology for crime. It includes assessment, consultation, research, risk evaluation, and treatment. A forensic psychologist might determine if a defendant understands court procedures, assess whether a witness is reliable, or evaluate a juvenile offender's mental health needs. It's a field grounded in science and ethics, with real consequences for justice and fairness. Understanding its scope is the foundation for everything that comes next. Step number 2. Learn the major branches of forensic practice. Forensic psychology is broad, so it helps to break it into key domains. Criminal forensic psychology focuses on offenders, assessing risk, competency, and mental state at the time of the crime. Civil forensic psychology addresses issues like child custody, workplace harassment, personal injury, and disability evaluations. Investigative psychology supports law enforcement through interviewing strategies, behavioral analysis, and sometimes profiling. Each branch requires different knowledge, but all share one core principle: using psychological science to support legal decision-making. Knowing the branches helps you understand where experts fit in the justice process. Step number 3. Understand forensic assessment tools and methods. Forensic psychologists rely on structured, validated tools, not guesswork. They assess mental illness, personality patterns, risk of violence, malingering, faking symptoms, competency, and more. Common methods include clinical interviews, psychological tests, collateral information like medical or school records, and behavioral observation. Examples of tools might include competency evaluations, risk assessment instruments, or trauma questionnaires. The key is objectivity. Forensic evaluations must be scientifically defensible, unbiased, and aligned with legal standards. Understanding these tools shows how forensic psychologists reach conclusions that hold up in court. Step number 4. Recognize the role of forensic psychologists in legal cases. Forensic psychologists work with judges, attorneys, law enforcement, victims, and offenders. Their responsibilities can include evaluating whether defendants are competent to stand trial, assessing insanity or diminished capacity claims, providing expert testimony, offering treatment in correctional facilities, conducting risk assessments for parole decisions, supporting victims with trauma-informed services. In court, a forensic psychologist must communicate complex science in clear, unbiased language. They are not advocates for either side. Their loyalty is to the truth. Their opinions can influence sentencing, custody rulings, and investigative strategies, making their work critical to justice. Step number 5. Understand interviewing and interrogation psychology. Interviews and interrogations are central to investigations, but human memory and decision-making are fragile. Forensic psychology helps identify best practices to reduce false confessions, detect deception, and improve witness accuracy. Effective interviewing avoids leading questions, threats, or pressure tactics. Instead, it uses rapport building, cognitive recall strategies, and structured approaches like the PEACE model. Witnesses, especially children and trauma survivors, require sensitive, evidence-based methods to ensure their testimony is reliable. Understanding these techniques shows how psychology protects fairness in the justice system. Step number 6. Explore criminal behavior and motivations. While not all forensic psychologists profile offenders, understanding criminal behavior is a core area of study. Experts examine factors such as personality disorders, trauma, cognitive distortions, social influences, and environmental stressors. The goal isn't to excuse crime, it's to understand why it occurs. For example, someone with antisocial personality traits may engage in impulsive or manipulative behavior. Someone experiencing psychosis may commit a crime due to delusional beliefs. This knowledge helps courts decide appropriate treatment, sentencing, and supervision plans. It also informs prevention efforts. The more we understand criminal behavior, the more effectively we can reduce it. Step number 7. Learn about ethics, the backbone of forensic psychology. Ethics in forensic psychology are stricter than in most psychological fields because the stakes are so high. Psychologists must remain neutral, avoid dual relationships, use reliable data, and clearly communicate the limits of their evaluations. For example, a forensic psychologist must disclose that they are evaluating, not treating, a defendant, and cannot guarantee confidentiality in the same way a therapist could. Objectivity is non-negotiable. When a forensic professional presents biased, sloppy, or unsupported opinions, real people can suffer. Victims, defendants, and communities. Ethics ensure that forensic psychology supports justice rather than undermines it. Here's what a typical workday might look like. 9 a.m. Conduct a competency evaluation with a defendant awaiting trial. 11 a.m. Review psychological test results and compare them to collateral records. 1 p.m. Consult with an attorney about what the evaluation findings mean for their case. 3 p.m. Write a detailed court report explaining mental status, risk levels, and key conclusions. 5 p.m. Prepare for upcoming testimony, ensuring all opinions follow legal and ethical standards. It's a job that requires analytical thinking, emotional steadiness, scientific rigor, and clear communication. HowExpert Tip: always separate facts from interpretation. Forensic psychologists must distinguish objective observations the defendant paused before answering from interpretations he may have been considering how to respond. This separation prevents bias and keeps evaluations defensible. When developing your forensic psychology knowledge, practice identifying facts versus assumptions. It's one of the most important skills in the field. When you understand these core concepts, forensic psychology becomes far more than crime dramas or courtroom drama. It becomes a disciplined, scientific field dedicated to truth, fairness, and public safety. You gain insight into human behavior, legal processes, and the psychological forces behind some of society's most difficult situations. Your challenge. This week, choose one real-world case, historical or current, and read about it from a forensic psychology perspective. Ask yourself, what psychological questions were relevant? What assessments might have been used? What ethical considerations were involved? This exercise builds real analytical insight into how the field works. For even more tips, techniques, and practical examples on this topic, check out HowExpert Guide to Forensic Psychology, available at Amazon, Audible, Barnes & Noble, Google, Kobo, Apple, Spotify, and all major bookstores as an ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook. HowExpert publishes how-to guides on all topics from A to Z. Visit howexpert.com to learn more.